Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video. Right now, the Milwaukee Bucks are sitting at the top of the Eastern Conference with a record of 53-20, which also happens to be the best record in the entire NBA. They're, of course, led by Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's right there with Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic as an MVP candidate. He's playing some amazing hoops. Some people are saying he's having a bit of a down year, but in my opinion, he is still the best player in the entire sport of basketball. He's also aided by Jrue Holiday, who might be playing the best basketball of his career right now, averaging 19 points to go with 7 dimes, while still being perhaps the best guard defender in the entire NBA, and he was an All-Star this past February. Then you have Chris Middleton, who has missed most of the season due to injury, but has recently returned and is starting to look more and more like himself as he gets more minutes, which is a scary thought for the rest of the NBA, the fact that he hasn't really played this much this season, and the Bucks are still the best team in the league record-wise. But perhaps the most unsung hero of this Bucks team, and really all the Bucks teams in the past few years, is Brook Lopez, who last season had a really bad year. It was perhaps the worst season of his entire career. He played just 13 games as he dealt with a lingering back injury, which caused him to have surgery, so he missed every single game other than opening night, all the way up until the end of the regular season, where he did return. But when he came back, he didn't look very good. He was not scoring as consistently. His three ball fell off a cliff, especially in the playoffs. He was a lot slower than he typically was. He wasn't the defensive anchor that they had come to know with him in Milwaukee. And all of a sudden, heading into his age 34 season this year, it looked like Brook might be on the decline. A couple people, me included, thought that maybe Bobby Portis was the future at the center position for this team, and that Brook Lopez's time as a Milwaukee Buck, as that elite defender down low, someone that could step out and hit threes, known as Splash Mountain, was kind of on the decline. And it would be understandable coming off of a major back surgery heading into your age 34 season. I don't think anybody would have been surprised if this was the beginning of the end for Brook Lopez. But instead of regressing towards retirement, Brook Lopez is probably having the best season of his entire career, which to some of you might sound insane to say, but I'm for real when I say that he is having the most impactful year he's ever had. So let's talk about what Brook has been doing so far this season. Statistically, he's putting up 15.6 points per game, which is his highest mark since getting to Milwaukee, 6.6 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 2.5 blocks, while shooting 52.1% from the field, and a career-high 37.7% from deep. And offensively, this is where his real value lies. He is an elite stretch big that can space the floor for Giannis, give him opportunities to go ahead and tack downhill, which is exactly what Giannis likes to do, and he's potentially the best in the league at doing so. And when you have a big who can step out and create advantages on the perimeter like Brook Lopez does, I mean, he takes just under half his shots from three-point territory. It does a lot for this team offensively. He is a really critical piece. He also sets big-bodied screens, which help guys like Giannis and the other ball handlers on this team like Jrue Holiday effectively navigate in the offense. There's also his ability to bang down low if need be. I mean, he was an amazing back-to-the-basket big in Brooklyn, so he still retains some of those skills here in Milwaukee, although he doesn't go to them nearly as often, but it's something that he can do if need be for this Bucks team offensively. So he's a pretty important piece on that end. However, easily the place where he makes the most impact is on the defensive end, where this season he has an argument for being the best defender in the entire league. Statistically, the 2.5 blocks per game probably jump off the page at you immediately, and this is tied for the second best mark in the NBA with Nicholas Claxton, and the two of them are only behind Jaren Jackson Jr., who averages 3 blocks per game. And Brook Lopez does it with the best of them. He has the most total blocks in the NBA this season. Basically, anybody that challenges the rim, Brook is either going to contest the shot at a high level, or he's just going to go ahead and swat it away, regardless of if you're one of the best attacking guards in the NBA, or if you're a dominant interior big like Joel Embiid. At the beginning of the season, I think it was actually in the first game of the year, Brook Lopez got a couple huge blocks on Joel Embiid, who right now looks like the MVP favorite, but it doesn't matter to Brook because he's just so good at timing his blocks. He also does this thing where sometimes he'll just let guards seem like they have a wide open lane to the basket. He'll almost bait them into going ahead and taking a layup and attacking, and then he'll just go ahead and swat the shot with ease. It just doesn't matter. He's got so much length and physicality that if you go ahead and try and attack the rim, Brook Lopez is going to give you a lot of problems. But his true defensive impact really shows when we take a look at his B-ball index metrics, which rank him against every other starter in the NBA, and amongst those, Brook Lopez ranks in the top percentile of basically every interior defensive category. According to these metrics, Brook Lopez is in the 99th percentile in rim deterrence, basically meaning that nobody wants to challenge him down low, and he legitimately forces opponents to take non-paint shots by just existing on the court. People are so scared of him. It's similar to what we saw from Rudy Gobert the past couple of seasons when he won Defensive Player of the Year. Brook Lopez has a similar effect. He's also in the 100th percentile in rim points saved per 75 possessions, meaning that nobody has prevented more buckets at the rim than he has this entire season just by contesting shots. He's also in the 80th percentile in post defense, meaning that while he's not the top guy in terms of one-on-one post defense, he's still pretty good on that end, which makes sense. He's also in the 99th percentile in screener rim defense, which means that he is elite in drop coverage when defending screens, a defensive scheme that Mike Budenholzer consistently employs, something that capitalizes on Brook Lopez's strength here. Whether you go ahead and attack the rim, Brook Lopez is in position to go ahead and stop you. If the Roman tries to get to the basket, he can turn his body and also defend at a high level. My guy Alex Hoops, who I'm sure a lot of you know here on Basketball YouTube, actually dropped an amazing video talking about Brook Lopez's defense, specifically in drop coverage, on his channel. I think it was a few days ago, and I'm going to go ahead and drop that in the description below. Make sure to go check that out if you want to hear more about this in some detail. Additionally, he's in the 100th percentile in help defensive activity, meaning that he's consistently called on to play help defense, and pretty much he always delivers. So as you can see, in pretty much every single defensive scheme that the Bucks employ, Brook Lopez is thriving. Whether you ask him to play in drop coverage, whether you ask him to play one-on-one against an opposing center down low, Brook Lopez is making an impact. Basically, the only thing that he's not good at is screener mobile defense, which means that basically, if you switch him out into the perimeter, he's not going to do much of stopping anybody, and that's probably not surprising to many people, but that's not something that he's usually doing very often, so it's not something I'm super concerned about, and I think the defensive impact that he makes inside way more than outweighs that. If you get inside the arc and you decide to challenge Brook Lopez, you're probably going to get blocked, or he's going to put an elite contest on your shot, so most players just choose not to do so, and this is the real value of Brook Lopez, because layups are the most valuable shot in the NBA. There's no shot that is easier than a layup at the rim, but Brook Lopez prevents players from even thinking about doing that, which helps the Bucks be the second best defense in the entire NBA, right up there with the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are currently in the 1 spot. Now, part of this is also due to the play of Jrue Holiday and Giannis Antetokounmpo, who are also high-level defenders, but Brook Lopez has been the linchpin of this defense. Without him, none of it works. It would all fall apart. And for that reason, in my opinion, right now, he should be the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. Jaren Jackson Jr., who I mentioned earlier in this video, I think is right now in second place. But if you ask me today who should win Defensive Player of the Year, Brook Lopez is my pick. He's been so dominant on that end, leading one of the best units in the entire NBA. And the way that he just operates in so many different facets of the game prevents players from even considering attacking the rim. It is incredibly valuable, and it really just speaks to the transformation that Brook has made over the course of his career. Lopez has gone through a complete career renaissance, basically unlike any player I've ever seen in the history of the league. And you might be saying that's a bit of hyperbole, which, yeah, maybe it's a bit of an exaggeration, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it is, because if you take a look at who Brook is now and compare it to who he used to be back in Brooklyn, you would never guess that these were the same player. If I just gave you the numbers and told you their impact and I didn't say Brook Lopez's name and you didn't know who Brook Lopez was, you would never guess that this is the same type of player. Never in a million years. It's such a drastic difference. To showcase this, let's go ahead and take a look at Brook's career as a whole. Back in his Brooklyn days, he was a traditional back-to-the-basket big. He basically posted up, and that's how he got almost all of his offense. He averaged around 20 points per game at that time. He had some solid defensive moments, although he was never in conversations for Defensive Player of the Year, an all-defensive team like he is now. He blocked shots at a decent clip. But yeah, that was pretty much his game, and it was good. I mean, he made an all-star game, and he actually ended up becoming the Nets' all-time leading scorer, a fact that I feel like not enough people know, because he does deserve a lot of props for the way that he played. But he didn't really have a game that felt like it was going to transition well into the new modern NBA, because at the end of his Brooklyn tenure is when the three-point revolution really started, and Brook Lopez was never really a three-point shooter. I mean, in the first 8 seasons of his career, Brook just took 31 threes, and he made 3 of them, shooting about 9% from deep in those first 8 seasons on very limited attempts. It just wasn't part of his game, and it felt like if Brook never adjusted to this modern NBA, it wouldn't be long before he was just an end-of-the-bench player. He maybe even, in a couple of seasons, could have been out of the league. But then all of a sudden, in his final year in Brooklyn, it seemed like Lopez realized, I've got to change my game. If I want to stay in this league at the long term and make a high-level impact, I got to start shooting threes. And he didn't just start shooting threes. He shot 387 threes in the 2017 season, over 10 times the amount that he shot in the first 8 seasons of his entire career. And in that season, he shot well from three. It's not like he just started chucking them and shot like 20%. He shot them at a 34.6% clip, which at that point was really good for a big man and was way better than the 9.7% clip that he shot them at in the first 8 years of his career. The drastic changes for Brook would not stop there, because in the following offseason, he was dealt over to the Los Angeles Lakers, leaving the Nets for the first time in his career and no longer being the guy. He spent so many years in Brooklyn as one of their leading scorers, one of the premier guys on the roster, to now in LA being seen as a bit more of a supporting piece for their young growing core. And this led to him averaging the least number of minutes that he ever had, career lows in multiple stat categories including points and rebounds, even blocks as well. It felt like Brook Lopez didn't really seem to fit in this Lakers team, and he said following the season he'd be willing to take a pay cut to stay with the Lakers if it meant competing for a championship down the line, but they decided to go their separate ways, and eventually he would sign a one-year deal with the Milwaukee Bucks, a decision that would both transform the fortunes of Brook but also those of the Milwaukee Bucks, as they made a conference finals in their first season together. They would lose to the Toronto Raptors, but eventually they would win an NBA title a couple years later in 2021, the first one that Milwaukee had seen in 50 years. A lot of this can be attributed to the play of Giannis, Drew, and Chris, but without Brook Lopez, they don't win that title, and they're nowhere near as good as they are now, looking to win their second title in the past few years. Brook has completely transformed his game entirely, now being known, like I mentioned earlier, as Splash Mountain in Milwaukee, hitting 532 threes in his tenure as a Buck, after once again hitting just 3 in the first 8 years of his career. He's also committed to becoming a better and better defender, now being a Defensive Player of the Year level guy. Adjustments that completely changed the trajectory of his career from maybe being out of the league in a few seasons, or at least being kind of a end of the bench type of player, to now being one of the most impactful players on a championship contending team. It is a complete night and day difference from who he used to be to who he is now, and he deserves so much credit for making those changes and being willing to work on his game tirelessly to stay in the league and make a big impact on the highest stage. We've seen a lot of players in the past that have become stubborn and refused to change their game to the point where it cost them some playing time in the league, it caused their careers to stagnate, but not Brook Lopez. He decided, I want this playoff success, I want to be in the league for a while, I want to make an impact, I'm going to grow as a defender, I'm going to grow as a three-point shooter, completely get rid of my whole back to the basket game. Sure, he does that sometimes now, but he hardly ever does it, never to the level that he did in Brooklyn, and it's been amazing for his career. These changes that he's made have been vital to his success as well as the success of the Bucks. It's just been amazing to watch, and he deserves so much love for the way that he has grown. He almost feels like a basketball chameleon who has consistently adapted and changed to basically any situation that he's faced with. And now it feels like I could realistically see Brook playing at a high level for the next 3-4 seasons, all the way almost up until he's 40 years old, something that I really did not think that was possible at the end of last season or even earlier on in his career. With all that being said, I appreciate you watching. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button if you did enjoy. It helps the channel out a ton. And most of you watch these videos aren't subscribed. You may think that you are, but you aren't, so make sure to go ahead and hit that button. Also, I want to thank y'all for 25,000 subscribers. It is just an unbelievable number that we've hit here on this channel, and so I want to thank y'all so much. I want to do something special for 25K. I don't know exactly what. If you have any suggestions, let me know in the comment section below, and also comment down below, do you also agree that Brook Lopez should be the Defensive Player of the Year? And what are your thoughts? Who are some other players that have made such drastic changes to their career that has helped them stay in the league for a while that they deserve credit for? I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real One Save back.